I'd have to say what I really enjoy about Happy State Bank is the morale that we have. Part of that goes back to the ownership that we talked about. Everybody understands as an owner, we're going to think like owners and not like managers, and we truly have each other's back each and every day. So that just the teamwork, everyone works so hard for each other, knowing that the ultimate goal is that each one of our customers is going to leave this bank knowing that we have given them everything we have as bankers to exceed any expectations they had out of our bank.
Our mayor, Paul Harpole, is not with us today, and so my fellow city commissioners have given me the gavel, and I think that's probably reason enough to pray. So if you join me in the invitation, let us pray. Today we give thanks for the gift of our community, for our shared commitment to what we do, and for our devotion to the common good for all the people of our city. May we work together with wisdom, patience, tolerance, and understanding. May we hear every care and concern, and may all things said and done today be filled with the spirit of mutual respect and grace. With thanksgiving and peace in our hearts and a clear focus in our minds, this is our prayer. Amen. And if you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated, please. Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Amarillo City Commission, held on the third floor of City Hall. Today, our meeting's at 5:30, so that people who work and can't come at 3 o'clock for our meetings on the other Tuesdays will be given the opportunity to speak to the City Commission. So I'm glad to see you all here. The first item on the agenda is the minutes, the approval of the City Commission minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting held on May 29, 2012. Does anybody have any additions or deletions for the minutes? Any public comment about the minutes? Okay. Do I hear a motion? Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I would move for approval of the minutes as presented.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved with a vote of 4 to 1. And the second item on the agenda is ordinance number 7333. This is the second reading of an ordinance to prohibit camping or remaining overnight on public property. The ordinance is designed to protect the ingress and egress rights of citizens, vendors, contractors, and employees to public property and municipal facilities for the conduct of routine business and to prevent the obstruction of such facilities. The ordinance would further provide protection from the potential health, security, and sanitation risks associated with camping in areas without proper facilities. The ordinance preserves the ability to use such public property for express purposes, public speech, and the redress of grievances. This is an ordinance that the City Commission has been looking at for a few weeks. And does anybody have, before the vote comes, any public comment from the audience? Would you please come forward and state your name and your address?
My name is Gary Shack, and I live at 1519 South Alabama. And first of all, I want to say how much I appreciate the Commission scheduling meetings at a time that's convenient for the average working person like myself to attend. I want to express my concerns about this ordinance. And first of all, I want to say that I understand that the city has the responsibility to provide some reasonable regulation of activities at our public parks, at all our public areas. And I certainly understand the difficulties that Faith City Ministries have faced the last few months, and I think they've gone the extra mile to try to work with their 10 city neighbors. And I understand there's been a lot of criminal behavior there, and I hate that they've had to deal with that. And I can appreciate the difficult position they're in. But the concerns that I have about this ordinance are that we are taking people who are otherwise law-abiding citizens, and we're going to make criminals out of them simply because they don't have a place to stay. My other concern is that the unintended consequence is going to be that we're going to have more trespassing on private property. We're going to have more people sleeping in churchyards. We're going to have more people hiding in back alleys, and it'll have the opposite effect of what we originally wanted to have a more orderly way for homeless people to live. If I were homeless, I would go to the park to sleep. And the reason if there was not a shelter available for me, and there is not shelter space available for all the homeless people in Amarillo, but I would go to a park because I respect private property rights, and I would not want to be an inconvenience or an annoyance to a commercial neighborhood or a residential neighborhood. I want to go off the park where I wouldn't bother anybody. Under this ordinance, as I understand it, I'd be a criminal and I'd be subject to arrest. There's got to be some middle ground. I'm not an expert. I don't know what other cities have done, but there's got to be some kind of compromise between making a criminal out of everyone that doesn't have a place to live and wants to sleep under a picnic table. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Gary.
My name is Rick also. I'm not too good at being extemporaneous, so if you don't mind.
And your address, please, Mr. Also?
I'm sorry?
With your address, please.
5504 Andrews, Amarillo. I'm a photographer and a writer, so I write a little better than I just speak. One thing that I've been doing the past 2 years has been a project with the homeless. And I got to know a lot of these guys specifically that are under the bridge. What I've learned from this, I just want to share. I have no solution. That's not my job. My job was to just garner some perspective, and this is it. The folks being addressed here today, the homeless, conjure negative images replete with degrading conjecture. It is this, our presuppositional bias, that I wish to bring to your attention and beg that you consider perspective. Beg that you consider the perspective from which we all judge another. A tent community under a bridge is a cancerous blight that must be eradicated from the common good of the community, as seen by us sheltered in our middle-class houses. But, seen from the eyes of one that is homeless, it is defense in numbers from omnipresent insecurity. It is all about perspective. What one sees as parasitic decay, another sees as safety. The same person that is defended vociferously as an abused child, as an adult, metamorphs into a street vagrant, warranting disdain from her assumed drug abuse and lack of self-sufficiency. The returning veteran that is welcomed home as a hero is quickly judged as a malingering junkie if he fails to deal with PTSD and less than stoic bravado. And the man that loses his entire family to a drunk driver transforms from garnering sympathy to scavenging cans because he never learned how to deal with pain. These are just three small glimpses of three individuals that have lived under the bridge. Money would be better spent to address the individual issues that have manifested, landing them on the streets, than to warehouse and stereotyping as prepubescent, driving more than a few to not even consider the shelters. My point is twofold. The homeless are not a collective of deviants coalesced for anarchy. They are individuals surviving the very best they can. The incarnations that we see is only where they are. It is not who they are. They are fixable, mendable, and salvageable if we would only look at them.
Thank you.
Pastor Dewey Butterfield. I live at 6401 Tierra, just outside the city limits, but I have a ministry and outreach at 1400 Southwest 8th Avenue here in Amarillo. And We hand out non-perishable sack lunches to the homeless, and we minister to them and we talk to them a lot. And there's a few of them that no matter what we do, we're not going to be able to reach, we're not going to be able to help. No matter what sources are available, they're not going to come inside. They're not going to conform to what we call natural living. And those are beyond help without God. But there are those who are out here. There's a young lady. Her and her husband both have gotten jobs. But to get off the street after having been on the street, it's going to take almost $3,000. They cannot come up with $3,000 in a 30-day time period. It takes 60, 90 days once they've established a capability of returning to normal life. This is a family that is under the bridge. Before they was underneath the bridge, they were in other various camps throughout the city. My plea to the city is, if you stop the camping only from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., these people who are resorting to have to stay on the streets, they're going to start camping in the daytime in our parks. They're going to be more visible. They're not going to stay as invisible as they are. And before the city takes this vote, please take into consideration that yes, there are those that we cannot reach, but there is a greater number out there that we could help. The shelters, I've checked with them, they are full to capacity. This last handful of people that are still camping out in our city, do we have some place for them to go before we would pass such an ordinance? There are families that come into town to visit other families that use public campsites. Are they going to be made lawbreakers simply because they are not able to stay with their family because there's not room? And is there an ordinance prohibiting public camping on private land? Is that been in a consideration to this, allowing them to go to a piece of private property? Before this law is passed, I just beg this council to have consideration to those who are trying and not just kick them again just because they're down and trying to get up. Council, I respect your decision and I'll respect your vote. But just know that there are those who are actually trying. And it's for them that I'm standing here today. Thank you for your consideration and time.
Thank you. This includes in the tents underneath the bridge. And so in that, I have another perspective, which is, why do they live in the tents? And the answer keeps coming back to the same thing. That's their home. That is actually their home, just like I have a house, and some people live in duplexes, and some people live in apartments. That is their actual home. A young woman started crying the other day, and she was talking about how she was so distressed about having to give up her tent. I understand that. And the reason why she was distressed is because she was talking about protection. And this is not uncommon too. There is some help in being together in tents together. And she had, before she did that, went into a tent and with a group of people. She was in her own tent. She was raped twice and beaten twice. I have experienced that myself too. I know what that's like. But just like all of you, going into our homes, in their case, they're just zipping it up, a little door. And anyone, I guess, could get a knife and cut through it. There are safety numbers. It's taking away their home. And that's really something that I want to bring to your attention. I understand a lot. It's a lot of logic on why they shouldn't be pitching their tents. But at night, we go into our homes and we sleep. So what's going to happen with this law is that they won't be able to go into their homes and sleep. Is that a fair statement? Is it? So I would like to ask if there could be a postponement on this law And if we could look into it some more and find another solution on where they could go to. It's not that they are really bad people. There's bad people in every neighborhood. It's just that where can they set up their homes to where it would be legal? That's what I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
My name is Alan Feingold. I live at 2601 North Grand. I take for granted that you will pass this ordinance because there's a certain amount of momentum in the decision-making process. But I ask you to delay the eviction of the people under the bridge for 7 days so that they can make other arrangements for where they can stay. I also agree with every one of the previous speakers, and I suggest that the commission consider having a supervised campground for people who want to camp out, that you might even consider charging a small fee for it. Now, I know that one of the objections may be that this will be an expense to the city, but consider the prospect of these people scattering and then being arrested, which is not only a trauma to them, but an aggravation to the police. And if they do land in jail, that's going to be about $35 a day to Potter County. All in all, having a supervised campground is both a safer and more economical alternative to simply evicting these folks and having them scatter. I hope you will consider especially that matter of giving them a 7-day period in which to make other decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Well, thank you to everyone who has spoken, and especially those of you that I know and that you have talked about working directly with the homeless. So I know you know what you're talking about, and I think that we can agree that the issue of homelessness is very complex. If it were simple, we would have had a solution by now. But I will say that tent cities, in my opinion, people living on property that has no sewage, no shelter from the heat and cold, no running water, is no solution to homelessness. It is unsanitary, unsafe, and unfair to everyone. I also want to clear up a misconception here today, and that is that this ordinance has anything to do with what's happening with the TxDOT property behind Faith City Ministries right now. That is a separate situation. TxDOT has its own rules that prohibit people from camping out for, I think it's, I could be wrong, but I think it's about 36 hours. After 36 hours, you have to move on, and that's because of their roadside parks. And so they had a standing rule already, regardless of what we do today with this ordinance. And it was TxDOT who wrote the city 2 different letters and said, please clear these people off of our property. And that's when that process started. I have before me, and I think that you have Vicki, did you put these out for people? James Allen. Okay, James Allen has a list of 18 different agencies that city staffers have been working with in the last at least week, maybe more than a week, with the Homeless Coalition to try to find places for these people to go. Now, with that said, I'll turn it over. I know that Commissioner Eads wants to say something, and perhaps Jared Atkinson as well. Commissioner Eads?
Yeah, I was interested. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here today. And, you know, the love and the care for the people in this city just sometimes overwhelms me a little bit. But I can guarantee that there's not a person on this dais whose family hasn't been touched by drug or alcohol addiction, by mental illness, by family members, if it weren't by the grace of God or a lot of support, would have family members who were on the street. That's something that touches every family, including my own. So I would say that this is not necessarily a group of public officials who are trying to do a disservice to these people who badly need our help. I heard stories about people being raped and beaten, and people who are homeless being considered to be bad people. I will tell you, that is not the perspective of this commission. I've heard nothing like that. What we really want to do is do everything we can to encourage these folks to avail themselves of the services that are available, and maybe subtly help them to, if they have not had an opportunity to reach out and touch their family. I heard a very poignant story last night about an individual who reached out and touched his family and was able to get just that level of support that allowed him to now become a productive individual. And you know that a large percentage of these folks fit into that very category. And yes, they have their right to be on the street, but they need our help when indeed they can utilize our help and support. So I just want to dispel the idea that we are not someone who are of the same mindset and heart as you are, and I think we'll continue. And in fact, I think Mr. Feingold's suggestion is an excellent suggestion. If there's really some evidence that delaying just a bit in order for them to more successfully be able to utilize the support that we've got available, maybe we should consider that minor change in order to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Jared, would you like to talk about what's been going on?
Certainly, Mayor, I'd be glad to. And again, appreciate your explanation trying to draw the distinction between the two issues. And Mr. Feingold, you're here often. You often have excellent comments, and we sure appreciate it. I might suggest, Mayor and Commission, that the concept of the delay to try to assist these folks in the particular case of the 210 cities, we have been in that mode. We have been in that mode for a couple of weeks now. The Amarillo Police Department has a specially trained unit for dealing with folks that are in difficult situations and that might need a little bit different type of contact. That team has been out there now for about a week working with them. The Homeless Coalition has been involved for a bit longer than that in trying to find placements. There have been several of the individuals, and I don't know that I could tell you which of the 210 cities, or if it was there's also a sidewalk group that was part and parcel of this. They have been working with them. Some of them have been placed. We'd sure like to see all of them to be placed, but we've certainly, considered the suggestion of the commission if that's what that you think we would do. I would say this is an issue that TxDOT and the surrounding businesses have been working on for quite some time now.
Mr. Atkinson, it's my understanding, though, that TxDOT is the one that's requesting the removal of that tent city, and whether we pass this ordinance today or not, it's the TxDOT request on using their own rule.
That is correct. In the case of under the Pierce Street Bridge, and then it's south into downtown there at the interchange. That is TxDOT property. TxDOT has been accommodating for quite some time. I think they have come under some pressures that they need to basically follow through with the standing rules that they have. Obviously, TxDOT does not have a police department or a sheriff's department. They have requested that the city enforce the trespassing statutes on those pieces of property. So,
okay. And I will say, working at Amarillo College, that we have homeless students who are living in shelters. And I have found that it's frustrating, but the best way to work on our homeless, huge homeless issue is to help one family, one person at a time. And that's frustrating because you want to move huge groups, out the streets. But if you help one person, one family at a time to get food, shelter, clothing, and then the education they need, the training they need to make some kind of livable wage, that you can save that one person at a time or one family at a time. It makes a huge difference. But it's tough because it's complex and because it takes a village, as they say, to move someone off the streets. So It's not, there's no easy solution here. Enough discussion? Carolyn, would you like to say something else?
Give my address again.
Sure.
It's 1947 South Mars. I just want to say, and just listening to what Thomas is talking about, just the ones that I've talked to, they're not going anywhere. Very few are actually leaving town. A small percentage are going to their families, but the rest are remaining here. They're just not going to leave town. The tents are still around town. The thing is, these people choose to live that way. And although, and I hear what you just said, you know, it's good to change. We can change one at a time, but there's a whole lot of people out there that I honestly believe that you all don't know about, that are hidden. And I've asked them, where do you have your tents? Where do you have your tents? And it's just amazing where these tents are, where they're sleeping throughout the city. And I guess the last statement I want to make is that they're not going away. They're just not going away. And I hope, like you, that a solution will be found because, you know, we want the best for them. And the bottom line is there's some people that say, I will not. This is the way I am, and this is the way I live. And that's just the way it is. And somewhere there is a medium. And, you know, God be with all of us to find where that happy medium is.
Thank you. And one other thing I'd like to say, somebody addressed, thank you, Carolyn. Somebody asked about private property, and that would be up to the private property owner. This ordinance only addresses public property. If someone is camping on your land and that's okay with you, then that's okay. If it's not okay with you, you would have the right of any private property owner to remove them.
Trina Fournier, 4427 South Haven. I am probably not going to articulate this very well because I haven't had a whole lot of time to really think about it. I'm saddened by the plight of the homeless people. I feel bad for them because a lot of them don't have any place to go. But what disturbed me more about this ordinance is that it is from pressure from the Department of Transportation in our state, pressure they're receiving from the state government, the federal government. Our municipalities are kind of our last defense against overreach of federal government. We should have a municipality that wants to protect us from the government overstepping its bounds. These people just want to live, and that's the way that they want to live. And maybe they don't want to live like that, but that's the way they are having to do it right now. And if we allow some faraway government agency to decide that they can't do that, we're not serving those people. Your obligation is to the people here in Amarillo. And that includes the homeless people, because a lot of them probably work. They actually pay taxes. Not property taxes because they're camping on public property, but they still contribute something, somehow, some way, to our community. And if we don't, as a city and as people, individuals of this city, protect them from a government that is overreaching its authority, dictating their private lives to such a degree, I find that really tragic. So I really hope that you will consider not passing it. I'd like to see something else done. And I don't know what exactly. I would kind of like the idea of a place for them to camp. I'd rather it be privately funded rather than funded by the city. If we could get donations and people wanting to help maintain it and do that as individuals and not ask the government to do it. But that's sometimes difficult to do. So anyway, that's all.
Ms. Fournier, I think you either misheard what I said or or I misstated it, so let me explain that it's not TxDOT asking us to pass this ordinance at all. It's only the timing is interesting. But we started talking about this ordinance several weeks ago. It was only 2 weeks ago, after we had been talking about this ordinance, that TxDOT didn't want the people on their land. I mean, this land, and that's when they wrote the letter. So the land belongs to TxDOT. And and this ordinance and the TxDOT letter are two separate, complete things. TxDOT didn't say, would you please pass an ordinance? That never happened. And TxDOT owns the land. It's like if somebody were camping on your front lawn and you asked the police to come remove them. It's your property, you can do that. It's their property, they can do that. So that's what's happening here, just to be clear. Okay. Do I have any more discussion? Do I have a motion?
I move approval of ordinance number 7333.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mayor, could I ask for a clarification? I apologize for interrupting.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry, there was a...
Oh, there was a change, yeah, there was a change.
The only change
Okay.
was on page 2, section 10-345, to state camping on public property rather than camping on city property.
Okay, that was my fault on New Year. Okay, that was the motion.
It's amended.
Do I have a second on the amended motion?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Mayor, I'd like
Yes.
some discussion.
Okay, great.
I would like to suggest that we delay any implementation for 2 weeks.
Pass the ordinance, but delay implementation for 2 weeks.
Yes, additional 2 weeks to what was previously outlined. Could allow folks additional time in order to be able to make arrangements
Do I need,
if they're currently on public property.
On the passage of an ordinance, there's a gap in there anyway, that has to be published or whatever it is, isn't there? I mean, is there any delay on this?
Jared, can you
It needs to be
discuss that?
enforced tomorrow.
I think it's an excellent point. This ordinance carries with it the potential Class C misdemeanor violations, so it goes through a publication period. And this ordinance could not be enforced until after that. And I believe, Mr. Wright, if you would help me,
June 26th is the first day.
June 26th would be the first day that this ordinance
20 days.
could be used. The issue of the two camps in downtown that we've been talking about, again, are being handled under the trespass statutes.
the TxDOT trespass statute?
It's by TxDOT as the owner of the
Okay.
property, but certainly the trespass statutes. If I could, what I'd like to offer, if you would let staff work with the police department, there's already been a lead up working with those folks, working with some deadlines which have actually already come and gone, and with not a whole lot of effect yet. With your permission, though, I'd like to work with the police department and see if we couldn't, possibly work on that maybe till later in the week or something to that effect. Part of what's driving some of this, of course, is you have private property and private business in that area that has been impacted dramatically in some cases by those cities. So would offer that and then take your counsel.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the ordinance, if we pass it today, will not go into effect until June 26th, so it would serve the purpose that Commissioner Deeds is asking. But on a separate issue, the TxDOT grounds where there is a tent city, you're saying that you would like the police department to be able to have a few more days to work on that,
I think that it would not be unreasonable to take a few more days. I don't think it's something at this point that needs to stretch out probably beyond the end of the week. But again, I would need to work with the police that have, again, been out there for quite some time now trying to help with this.
Okay, but that's an issue that is not before this Commissioner's Court right now.
That's correct.
So you don't need our permission to do that, or we don't have a vote to do that.
Your vote exactly would be on this ordinance. I think, though, you have taken excellent public comment that's more specifically related to those tent cities, and as such, I think that's something we can work on.
Okay, so that's an announcement you just made to the people that came to talk, but our vote is on this ordinance.
Okay, and based on the city manager's good word, as always, I would withdraw the amendment.
Okay. Does everybody understand? All right, good. Now, we have a motion and a second, an amended motion and a second, so let's vote. Everybody in favor of the amended motions, vote by saying yes?
Aye. Yes.
Yes. And anyone against, no. Okay, it passes 4-1. Ordinance number 7333. I didn't vote. 4-0. What did I say? 4-0. Sorry, 4-0. Okay, now, number 3 on the agenda, ordinance number 7334. This is the second and final reading, changing the zoning of east 135 feet of Block 5, Block 250 in the Everstadt subdivision of Holland Edition, and Section 156, Block 2, A&M survey, Potter County, in the vicinity of Northeast 7th Avenue and Arthur for a manufactured home. Do I have any comment from the audience on this agenda item? Any comment from the commissioners? We looked at this last week, so do I have a motion?
May I move we approve ordinance number 7334?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, ordinance number 7334 passes 4-0. And then the consent agenda. It is recommended that the following items be approved and that the city manager be authorized to execute all documents necessary for each transaction. A, purchase police radios. B, approval of Junior League of Amarillo volunteer agreement. And C, the approval of the tax increment reinvestment zone number 1 incentive project. Is there any item on the consent agenda that should be removed for separate consideration? And I have one. I need to remove item C because it has to do with Amarillo College, which is my employer. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to remove? Any comment? Yes, Mr. Johnson?
I would like to commend the Junior League for their, what do I say, their support at the zoo, furnishing us with five volunteers to assist in running the zoo, helping with the visitors and other activities out there. So that's very commendable.
A lot of exciting things are going on out there right
A
now.
lot of things are going on at the zoo.
Anybody else? Anybody from the audience want to comment? Okay, let's vote on the consent agenda, just items A and D right now.
Mayor, I would move for approval of items A and B only on the consent agenda.
Second that motion.
All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the items A and B on the consent agenda pass by a vote of 4-0. And then item C, the approval of the tax increment reinvestment zone number 1 incentive project.
Madam Mayor, in special recognition of you, I would move for approval of item C on the consent agenda.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I recuse myself, so item C passes by a vote of 3-0-1. Okay. Okay. Now we have a presentation of the 2012 Every Drop Counts Be Water Wise campaign. We're going to have this every month, I understand. And is it Emmett Autry that's going to give that to us? Great.
Well, as usual, it's a short presentation, Mayor and Commission. Looks like very similar to the chart that you saw last month, except that the current year, which is the black line, the really bold black line there, is extended through the month of May. Just quick look at some comparative figures here. Well, first of all, the black line is following the average line very, very closely. The blue line up there that it's tracking with is a 5-year average. And I believe that's the 5-year average previous to 2011. So we're having an average year. I don't know if we should get excited about that. I'm excited about it, I'll tell you that. Let me just give you a quick comparison. Last year, through the month of May, we had received 6,800 of an inch of rain in 5 months. This is not on there, I'm sorry, this is extra. And then this year, for the same 5 months, we have received 5.63 inches of rain, which is almost 5 inches more than this time last year. Last year in May, we used over 2 billion gallons of water for that 1 month 2.084 billion gallons, and this year we have used 1.577 billion gallons, which is 507 million gallons less through 4 of the month of May. And I would ask if you have any questions for me.
Does anybody have any average rainfall amounts now?
Any what kind of rainfall?
The average, I mean, the rainfall amounts to date?
Well, the average, yes ma'am, they're on my desk.
Okay.
Cumulative rainfall to date compared to the long-term average are very similar right now.
Right, I would expect that would be the case.
Emmett, do you have available cumulative pumping through the end of May this year versus cumulative end of year last year? I know we were over 500 million down for the 1 month, but we're significantly more than that even for the year. And to follow up on that,
yes, I do have that, Mr.
Okay, go ahead. Give us that, please.
I put this together just before I came up. Last year through May, we had used, are you talking about rainfall or water use?
Water.
Water use. Last year through May, we had consumed 6.5 plus billion gallons. This year, through the same period, we have consumed 5.6 billion gallons.
So about a 900 million gallon differential from last year.
Well, as we all know, most of the water used by city dwellers is to irrigate their lawns. And so, do you think it's because people are getting smarter about using water wisely, or do you think it's because we've had good rainfall?
I think it's both, Mayor. May I be political?
No, I like truthful.
No, obviously the additional rain has helped to keep the water consumption down. But let me just say this: looking at the 5.63 inches of rain that we've had to date, 5 out of 12 months, we're on target for only about 14 inches or 15 inches of rain this year, which is still well below average for the year. Now, I can't predict what will happen for the next 7 months. If we could get Maribel over here, she might be able to do that. But she's not here. Any other questions for me?
Well, I'm interested in the water collection incentive rebate program and what's been happening with that.
Here's your man,
All right.
right here.
Kelly, is there another picture there? There it is. That is our first applicant. We got it today. This person installed a 500-gallon tank to capture water off his roof. And he was saying like the 30-minute rain fills up the tank. So that will be our first. We have the brochures printed. They're ready to go. In fact, they're right outside for anybody that wants them. And we also have it on our website. Kelly, can you bring that up for me?
I like that.
Yeah, he's using that water to do his whole garden. Okay, it's right at the very bottom of the website. If you'll click on the Rainwater Harvesting Incentive Program, right there. Okay, and then click on the first, that's it. And that'll give you the same information that is in here about our rain harvesting program, that for a 1-barrel system, you can get a $12 credit on your water bill. If you install a 2 rain barrel system, each barrel has to be at least 45-gallon capacity. We can give you a $25 credit on your water bill. Now, that gentleman that we just saw with a larger system, he won't hit the maximum, but our maximum credit is $500, and that'd be a pretty good sized system. But he's probably going to get probably about $175 credit for his system that he installed.
And that's a one-time credit.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, it's a one-time credit to help encourage people to do the rain harvesting, and we're real proud of the program. It just started literally today. Then, if back on the website, the middle, go up a little. Okay, the middle tab is frequently asked questions. We've got different questions and answers about rain harvesting. Now, we're encouraging rain harvesting, but not for potable water. This is not to be used for drinking water. This is to be used for irrigation of some kind. So if you look at our frequently asked questions, we emphasize that. Nor can these rain harvesting systems be hooked up to the city system. We can't allow that. So we've got frequently asked questions, and the very last item on the website, up there at the top, Kelly, is the application, which is the last page of this. It should tear off, and you just send that in for your rebate. And we're real excited about the program, and I think it's going to be very successful. We are also this Monday going to roll out a poster contest starting in our parks as a recreation project, and we hope to get 12 posters, and we're going to use them to make a calendar for next year.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Emphasizing conservation.
Definitely. And there'll be different age groups, and the recreation leaders will have a lot of fun with it in the parks. We're also going to roll it out at the Discovery Center, and we'll have a press release about it.
Okay, great. Thank you. You're so excited about it. I like
Yes, I am.
smile so much. And we have big water-wise bags that we give away to people with some goodies inside in it, do we?
Yes, we're still doing that. We use that as a welcome for a new water customer, and we also use it as promotional items.
Okay. Thanks. Good work, guys. Thank you. Okay. What are you saying?
You're doing a fine job.
Okay. This concludes today's agenda of the Amarillo City Commission. It is, however, customary at this time that we allow citizens of the community with matters pertaining to city policies, programs, or services to speak to the commission, and the floor is now open for those comments.
My name is Mel Stapleton. I live at 104 Sunset Terrace, and I'm here because I got a notice from the traffic department that they intend to replace our ornamental lights with some 30-foot pole fiberglass light. I'm opposed to that for a couple different reasons. One, it seems contradictory that the city is encouraging ornamental lights downtown on 6th Street, and we're taking out ornamental lights where they exist. I've had several conversations with different folks, South or XL. There seems to be some confusion who actually owns the lights. I have a copy of a 1928 document that shows that the residents of the Sun or Country Club Edition purchased those lights. The confusion is that XL owns them. I don't believe that's the case. So the indication is back in 1928, the city assumed those lights and agreed to maintain them. Those lights can't be retrofitted. Now XL can't do it, but they can be. I've talked to the people in University Park, city outside of Dallas. They have lights very similar to these. City maintains them. They say they retrofit them all the time. We had this same battle with the city, and sometime in the early 80s, the exact same issues. At that time, the city was going to take the lights out and put creosote poles in. There were several meetings with the city, John Stick, the city manager at that time. XL was involved, Southwestern Public Service at that time. And there was a agreeable conclusion. The lights remain where they're at. That's what we would like to see happen again.
Okay.
I think we have other residents here that would like to speak on the same matter.
Okay. Anybody wants to speak, and then I have some comments, but who else from Country Club Edition? Do y'all have any photos of what you're talking about?
Yes. Yes, we do.
Great. Can we see them?
Sure.
Okay.
We also have a copy of the 1928.
Okay, great. Can you give them to us? Hey, Coach.
How are you doing? I'm Johnny Cobb. I live at 102 Sunset. And I'll make it brief. know that this is anywhere near as important as our homeless issue, but I would certainly like to say, as much as I've seen us work in beautifying Amarillo and all the courthouse and all the downtown area and all up and down 6th Street, and then I would hate to see us take a step backwards now. These lights have been out there. I mean, it's just historic Amarillo. And for us to go ahead and tear those lights down now and put up those poles would just really be taking a step backwards from what the city of Amarillo is already all about, and beautifying Amarillo, and we're moving forward. Things are looking great. That courthouse down there, all up and down 6th Street. There's certainly an easy solution to this, because some ornamental lights that would fit into that neighborhood just needs to be paramount, I think. So I would appreciate you really considering this.
Thank you, Coach Cotton.
Can I ask a question? Did these lights used to be in other places in Amarillo too?
Yes, they're on Julian Boulevard at one time.
Seems like I remember shooting lights like this out.
Well, that might contribute to our current.
My son's
shortage,
actually did that on
Was that last week?
If I could expand a little bit, and I apologize, sir, for jumping in front of you. Mr. Stapleton, I think those lights were purchased in 1930. Looks like the addition approached the commission in 1928, and by 1930 they funded, and I'd love to have this deal, they bought 31 of them for $1,860. So extrapolate that today, those are probably pretty expensive lights, but we've done some research on that as well, so I apologize, sir.
Can I get your name and address, please?
Don Killow, 3718 Cheyenne Terrace. I just want to kind of reenhance what Johnny and Mel already said. I think a step backwards would be taken if we did do away with these ornamental lamps. They add a certain amount of character and appeal to our neighborhood. And I have noticed that they've replaced, I believe, 4 of those lamps, or are replacing. They put new lamps over in Sam Houston Park. Now, those lamps do not have near the character and class that these old lamps have, but they are the sodium vapor lamps. And I think if they say that they're hard to get parts for these old lamps. The heads on them, you would think somewhere that they could adapt some other kind of a head to these lamps. If worst case scenario, instead of replacing those lamps, if it comes to pass, with the fiberglass poles and those huge sodium vapor lamps, I would like to consider maybe, or have you considered maybe replacing those lamps with lamps like they're putting over in the park. They're still a park lamp, and they would still maintain some of the character of the neighborhood, which I think, like I said, has a lot of appeal to our neighborhood. That's it. Thank you.
I have some pictures of the lamps that's put in Sam Houston Park, if I see them.
Yeah, I'd like those. Thank you. There was somebody else coming in. Oh, come on.
Good evening. My name is Hope Nielsen. I'm here representing my mother, Mrs. Patricia Nielsen, who resides at 1000 Sunset Terrace. She is ill at this time and not able to come, but we have been in contact with Mr. Stapleton and the other neighbors. In 1981, we worked vigorously to maintain those street lamps at that time. You are correct, some of those lamps went to Julian Boulevard and they were returned to our neighborhood in 1981 after everything was said and done. Now Mr. Stapleton has already contacted University Park in 1981 and 82. It was known that there was a supplier who was supplying University Park with parts and could supply the city of Amarillo with those parts. Some of those units have been refurbished that everyone forgets. They were refurbished in between 1981 and 1984. Not all of them. But I think as long as the parts are available, that we should maintain these lights, because they were erected in that neighborhood when that neighborhood was developed. That is the first subdivision of the city of Amarillo. And actually, one of my great aunts and her husband built a house for one of the first homeowners in that subdivision, and the lights were put in at that time. She is now, of course, deceased. But I would suggest to the commission that if there is a problem with funding the restoration of these street lights, that we might want to apply to the Texas Historic Commission for a grant for this purpose. That neighborhood is now almost 100 years old. We are within the boundaries of the Texas Historic Commission's their criteria for giving grants. Now, since the city has already allowed the original town of Clemens to be virtually destroyed, this is your first subdivision of the city of Amarillo. It was a very prestigious subdivision when it was constructed, and this neighborhood has been maintained. The houses in this subdivision have always been well maintained, and we would like to maintain the historical character of our subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Bill Sims, and I live at 801 Sunset Terrace. I also have a home at 704 Sunset Terrace. I also have a home on 419 Arch Terrace. Okay? Guess what? My whole bank account's there. I enrolled that bank account in that area because I like the neighborhood. Okay? One of the things that come out in the flyer from the city was mentioned that the reason that they wanted to put the new lights in was to enhance safety, the traffic safety. That's great. I think we need it. I think we need more policemen patrolling that area. I think we need more lights in the area as well. I think it would be great if we can get some more of the same kind of poles that we have now. I'm passionate about that area. I hope to live there for quite some time. Yes, those homes, the other two homes I have, I do rent them out, and I like to show that, hey, I've got a nice place for you to rent if you want to rent. So I would have you think, if it was your neighborhood, and they were going to come and do that to your neighborhood, what would you do? I hope that you would stand up for your neighborhood. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. One quick comment?
Yes, ma'am.
You have to come up to the podium, please.
Yes, ma'am. It just takes me a second.
All right, we'll wait.
Okay.
We're good.
I have, within the last year, I've had cause to contact the police department, your community service officer, about the crime rate in the country club area. There was some peddlers going through that were a problem. Your community service officer was kind enough to fax the police crime statistics for that neighborhood for the previous 6 months. She faxed them to my office. This is a low crime area. It's a very low crime area. We only have one house that's having problems, and that's a domestic problem, which is going to have to be resolved by the district court. We're not going to get in with those people. But this is a very low crime area. As a matter of fact, every year we have approximately 100 trick-or-treating children come to our mother's door on trick-or-treat. We do that because we make up little bags of candy for them. And the teachers that live in the neighborhood tell us this is one of the few neighborhoods that people really feel that they can take their children into with safety. So if the city is going to say we need to replace those lights for safety, then I think, quite frankly, you are misinformed. This is a completely safe neighborhood. We've never had any real trouble in all the years that we've been there, and my parents have lived in there. My mother has lived in her house since 1960. So we're now talking over 50 years, 60 years almost. This is not a high crime area. Putting those awful fiberglass or creosote poles in this neighborhood for the purpose of safety is just not reasonable. And if they've told you that we need it for safety, if anyone has told you that we need this for safety, you have been misinformed. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Sims, I am passionate about that neighborhood. My family's owned a house there 68 years, 124 Wayside. I went to Margaret Wells, I went to Sam Houston, I went to Tascosa. I know Arch Terrace, I know Crestway, I know Cheyenne, I know Sunset, the coolest street in Amarillo. And I love that neighborhood. We just sold a house, we called it 124. We sold it December. And it was much, grinding of gnashing of teeth, having to sell that house. Nobody wanted to. We had to pay for my mother's nursing home care. So we sold the house. But we all grew up there, 10 kids. And so anyway, but I digress. There's a little pocket park in front of my mother's home. And one of those lamps used to be there and they replaced it, and we didn't like that either. I will say this. I now live in West Hills, and I'm president of the West Hills Neighborhood Association. Do y'all have a neighborhood association? I would encourage you to form a neighborhood association. We don't call ours a homeowner because we have some renters, and that's okay. And we work with the city to do many, many things. Over the last 5 years, we've improved our park. We have we've started neighborhood watches, so we help with crime. We've addressed traffic issues in the neighborhood. It's really a good thing to get together as neighbors and decide what your priorities are and to work with the city. And I will say that Mr. Atkinson, long before I was a city commissioner, was very open to working with neighborhood associations. One other suggestion I would make, as you know, I hope you realize the city itself can't pick out neighborhoods and say you get the best stuff because we like you best. Everybody has to get equal treatment. And so there are many neighborhoods in Amarillo that have public improvement districts that we call PIDs up here. And what they do is they get together as a neighborhood and they agree to pay a little bit more in property taxes, and then they get that money to use for their neighborhood. And you even pick a board of directors, and then you work with the city to make the improvements that you all want to make as a neighborhood. And I know that Mr. Atkinson has, you all have talked to him some this week about this, and I know he's done some research. And I'll be quiet and let him talk, but I would encourage you to continue working with him.
Thank you, Mayor. We certainly have had a chance to start looking into that in greater detail. And, I think the biggest issue, those light poles are 81 years old. I think there is a better solution than putting the standard 30-foot light out there. And I think that's something that collectively, if you guys can get together and get with some of us, we'd be glad to talk to you and work it out. That's how they got there to start with. The decorative lights that you see in many different places in town, that's how they got there. We have we're the government. We like standards. Everything's a standard. We have 2 standard residential light poles. They are the 30-foot tall, big poles. I went over there today at lunch to look at your poles. Some of them in pretty good shape. Some of them not so good a shape. I think you've had one run over recently. So we need to find a solution. I'd like to find a solution that would last for another 81 years. And we'd like to work with you to do that.
Okay, so I would encourage y'all to stay after and talk a little bit to Jared and whoever else on the city staff, and would really encourage you to form a neighborhood association. You get a lot done that way by working together and deciding what your priorities are. Thank you for coming today. Anybody else? Carolyn?
Carolyn Thornton, 1947 South Mars. I just wanted to say that in being under the bridge and living under the bridge, I have seen the city help the people. They have gone above and beyond. You have Ellen, you have Vicki, and James Allen, and I have brought to the attention of the city some things, some special people that were there that needed special needs more than anyone else. And I just want to say thank you for what you're doing for them. It's remarkable. Thank you.
Anybody else? Johnny Cobb.
This just take 1 second, and I would just like to, I'm Johnny Cobb, 102 Sunset, I'm sorry. I would just like to reiterate something that is a low crime neighborhood out there. But Brian, we had 2 boys, one was mine, one was Mel's, went out there and shot out a bunch of lights with a BB gun. I would just like to assure the commission that both boys have now graduated from college and have left the neighborhood.
That's all you can hope for, is that your children leave the nest.
You find a place for Dr. E.
Okay, are we finished yet? Thank you very much. I guess we're leaving. We're adjourned now. Thank you.